Today we're diving into a really foundational text. It's Charles Darwin's 1871 book, The Descent of Man and Selection in Relation to Sex. Big title.
It certainly is. A hugely influential book.
And our mission here is basically a shortcut to understanding this key part of human evolution theory, but updated, with 150 years of science since then.
Right. We're looking at what Darwin sort of got right, and maybe where his ideas, where they differ from what we understand now.
Exactly. And we're drawing a lot from this great collection called A Most Interesting Problem, edited by Jerry DeSilva. It's got top experts revisiting Darwin's book chapter by chapter.
It's a fantastic resource for this.
So yeah, prepare for some pretty surprising insights into Darwin's thinking, how forward-thinking he was in some ways, but also, the blind spots shaped by his time.
Absolutely. And thinking about that time, The Descent of Man came out February 24th, 1871. It was the book where Darwin finally tackled human origins head-on.
Something he kind of sidestepped in Origin of Species, right?
He did, largely because of the prejudice around the topic.
Yeah.
But in Descent, he famously said, ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge, asserting that human origins were knowable.
He called it a most interesting problem for the naturalist.
Precisely. He was planting humanity firmly within the animal kingdom, which was, it was a big deal.
And the context of his life then is fascinating, too. He's 62, famous, wealthy, living at Down House.
And his family was really involved in this controversial work.
Yeah.
His daughter, Henrietta, she copy-edited the proofs on her honeymoon.
No way.
Yes. And his son, George, helped with demographic data. Even his wife, Emma, who was quite religious, read it, though apparently she said it would push God further off.
Wow. That speaks volumes. So blurring that line between humans and animals, that was the really explosive part.
Oh, absolutely. Pure dynamite for Victorian England. I mean, suggesting even the Queen was just a grown-up animal in the grand scheme.
You can imagine the reaction. Lots of those cartoons of Darwin as an ape.
Exactly. Those caricatures really captured the public shock and how controversial it all was.
Okay, so building on that foundation, let's get into one of his most maybe revolutionary ideas. The human mind, our morality. How did he see that evolving?
Well, this is where he was incredibly ahead of his time. Instead of divine origin, he proposed this purposeless natural process.
Natural process for morality.
Yeah. Brian Hare, in A Most Interesting Problem, talks about Darwin's idea of survival of the friendliest. Think of penguins huddling for warmth, or bonobos showing kindness.
Bonobos weren't even known then, were they?
Not as a distinct species, no. But Darwin predicted we'd find these building blocks of morality in animals: sympathy, regret, reasoning, learning from others, self-control, even love.
And we have found them, haven't we? The examples are amazing. Bonobos sharing food with strangers. That's sympathy right there.
Absolutely. Or there's a story about Vinny the bonobo figuring out how to get food without knocking it over, real self-control.
But the dog-human connection, the oxytocin loop, that feels huge.
It is huge, finding that the same hormone, oxytocin, that bonds parents and babies, also spikes when humans and dogs interact, just through eye contact sometimes.
That's incredible validation.
It really is. It shows Darwin's genius, right?
Yeah.
He outlined this framework without psychology, without genetics, without even knowing about bonobos, and predicted things like this hormonal link, just based on observation and deep thinking.
Truly visionary. Okay, so the mind is one thing, but what about the physical evidence? The bones? Darwin didn't have much to go on there, did he?
No, not at all. Johannes Haile Selassie discusses this. Darwin knew the key human traits were, walking upright, bipedality, using tools, smaller canine teeth, big brains, being less hairy. That was the most interesting problem physically.
And the fossil record was minimal.
Extremely minimal.
Yeah.
Just a few Neanderthal bones, and even those were often mistaken for, diseased modern humans.
Yet he made that incredible prediction about Africa.
He did. Based on our closest living relatives, chimps and gorillas, being in Africa, he speculated quite brilliantly that our early ancestors would likely be found there too.
Which turned out to be absolutely right. But the picture we have now, with thousands of fossils going back 6 million years, it's way more complicated than he could have known.
Oh, completely. And it actually corrects Darwin's proposed sequence. He thought that freeing the hands for defense came first, then bipedality, then smaller canines, then the big brain.
But that's not the order we see now.
No. The fossils clearly show upright walking came before sophisticated tool use and the really big brain expansion. Bipedality is much older.
And it wasn't a straight line either, more like a bush.
Exactly, a branching bush. We know now there were multiple hominin lineages, different species, living at the same time. Think Australopithecus like Lucy, coexisting with others like Paranthropus or Zinjanthropus, as it was first called.
So Lucy's species was walking upright.
Definitely bipedal, yes. Australopithecus afarensis. Then we see canine teeth getting smaller, especially after about 3 million years ago. And the big brain jump. That seems to happen much later, around 2.5 million years ago, sort of coinciding with more regular tool making and maybe more meat in the diet.
But the why of walking upright in the first place, that's still debated.
It is. That's the question that still, as you said, keeps experts up at night. The precise evolutionary pressures that favored bipedality right at the beginning. We have ideas, but no definitive answer. It's still a major puzzle.
Okay, this brings us to some trickier ground. Descent of Man wasn't just about bones and minds. Darwin also wrote about human variation, what he termed the races of man. And this is where things get, well, problematic.
Yes, very much so. Agustin Fuentes really tackles this head-on in his chapter. He acknowledges Darwin's brilliance, but confronts the racism embedded in the book.
How so? Didn't Darwin argue all humans came from a common ancestor?
He did. That's monogenism, which was scientifically correct and actually quite progressive for the time compared to theories of separate origins. But at the same time, he absolutely believed in a hierarchy. He ranked different groups, often calling some savages, and explicitly placing, say, Negro tribes lower down the scale than Europeans.
But didn't his own experiences contradict that, like the Fuegians he met on the Beagle voyage, or his working relationship with John Edmonston?
Exactly. He had direct evidence of the intelligence and adaptability of different peoples. Edmondson, a formerly enslaved man from Suriname who taught Darwin taxidermy, was described by Darwin as pleasant and intelligent. Yet, despite this, Darwin sort of fell back on the prevailing biases of his time to explain differences.
So the bias overrode the evidence he saw himself.
It seems that way. And Fuentes points out something crucial. Darwin's own data in the book, the things he measured like hair or skin color, didn't actually support explanation by natural selection in the way he thought. But he still asserted there were intellectual and moral differences linked to these superficial traits.
That's a really powerful example of how bias can, well, obscure the data, as Fuentes puts it.
It is. And unfortunately, these ideas, coming from someone as respected as Darwin, provided a sort of scientific-sounding foundation for really harmful movements, later on eugenics, justifications for Jim Crow laws, white supremacy. These arguments are sadly still sometimes used by white supremacists today.
So what's the clear scientific picture now based on modern genetics and anthropology?
Unequivocal. Biological race, in the way Darwin and others conceived it, distinct, hierarchical categories simply doesn't exist. It's a social construct, not a biological reality.
But people look different. Skin color, hair texture.
Of course. But those variations are adaptations, usually to local environments. Skin color, for instance, is a fantastic example of balancing UV protection against the need for vitamin D synthesis, maybe folic acid protection too. These traits vary gradually across populations. They don't clump into neat racial boxes.
And genetically, we're very similar.
Incredibly similar. There's actually more genetic diversity within some chimpanzee troops than in the entire global human population. We're a very young species, relatively speaking.
It makes you wonder if Darwin saw today's genetic data.
You'd have to think, as the incredible scientist he was, he would revise his views. He'd likely reject biological race and understand how racism itself as a social force has profound biological impacts on people's health and lives, but that the categories themselves aren't innate biology.
Okay, moving from race to another area where Darwin's Victorian views were really apparent, sex differences and gender roles.
Yes, and Holly Dunsworth pulls no punches here. She argues that maybe the most damaging legacy of Descent of Man is its racist and sexist narratives. She even says the book was, quote, better for birds, beagles, baboons than it was for billions of humans. Strong words.
Wow. So how did Darwin explain differences between men and women?
Primarily through sexual selection, the idea that competition for mates drives certain traits. For skin color, he actually suggested men might be darker because of female mate choice based on local beauty standards.
Which we now know is about natural selection. UV light, vitamin D.
Exactly. Natural selection, not sexual selection, is the driver there. And for height, he thought men were taller because bigger, stronger males won fights over females.
And the modern view on height difference.
It's much more complex. Estrogen plays a key role in bone growth, stopping it earlier in females as resources shift towards reproductive maturity. So the height difference is more of a byproduct of different developmental timing related to reproduction, not just about males fighting.
So he took these observations and then layered on interpretations about character.
Very much so. He wrote things like, man is more courageous, pugnacious, and energetic than woman, and has a more inventive genius, concluding that ultimately, man has ultimately become superior to woman. These were presented as scientific conclusions.
And those ideas had real-world consequences.
Absolutely. They were used to justify excluding women from higher education, from science itself. The idea that women weren't intellectually suited for these fields drew strength from Darwin's perceived scientific authority.
And Dunsworth argues these stereotypes linger today.
Yes, that these narratives about inherent male dominance or female passivity still echo in pop culture, contributing to rigid gender stereotypes which, research shows, correlate with things like poorer educational outcomes for girls in some areas, and even contribute to cultures where sexual assault is more prevalent.
So just having the better science isn't enough to fix it?
Apparently not. Dunsworth's point is powerful. It's not just about correcting the science. We also need to change the stories we tell about ourselves, about our origins. And critically, we need more diverse voices telling those stories.
It really paints such a complex picture of Darwin, a true visionary in setting the framework, yet so deeply a product of his Victorian world.
Absolutely. You see this tension throughout. Science isn't clean. It's this ongoing, often messy process. You hypothesize, you test, you get things wrong, you correct, ideas evolve. Darwin himself embodied that, even in his mistakes.
So his work was a mix, as one expert said, of outmoded social ideas with forward-looking scientific hypotheses.
A perfect summary. And it underlines why diversity in science is so crucial now. Having people from different backgrounds with different perspectives helps us challenge those inherited assumptions and biases that can cloud interpretation. It helps us see the fuller picture.
It makes you think, if you could sit down with Darwin today, what would you even ask him, faced with 150 years of new data?
Right. Would you start with the genetics of race, show him a bonobo, maybe talk about the fossil record?
There's that amazing anecdote Jerry DeSilda mentions. In 1864, Darwin actually held a 50,000-year-old Neanderthal skull from Gibraltar.
Yeah, he held it in his hands. But he didn't recognize its significance then, didn't see it as part of human ancestry.
Imagine showing him that skull now alongside Lucy and all the others. What would he say?
Mind-bending, isn't it? A real testament to how far our understanding has come, building on the foundations he laid, warts and all.
A truly fascinating journey, and we really hope this deep dive encourages you, the listener, to keep exploring, keep questioning, and always look for those diverse perspectives.
Definitely read A Most Interesting Problem if you want to go deeper. It brings together all these expert voices we've touched on.
It's a fantastic way to see how science progresses.
Show, let's go, open up your mind and grow. Facts and stories, things you never know. Every episode, we light the glow. Step into the world of Mad Show. Turn it up, let the rhythm flow. Feel the beat, take control. Don't be shy, just let it go. This is where the magic grows. Tune in now, it's the Mad Show. Lights up bright and minds will glow. Every day we learn and grow. Come along and join the flow. New ideas begin to shine. Breaking limits, crossing lines. Every moment feels divine. In the world of Mad Show time. Turn it up, let the rhythm flow. Feel the beat, take control. Don't be shy, just let it go. This is where the magic grows. Tune in now, it's the Mad Show. Lights up bright and minds will glow. Every day we learn and grow. Come along and join the flow.